Hey class. Sorry I wasn't able to be there today. Family stuff, like it's wild. But this book to me encompasses a lot of different things. And it talks like each chapter has subheadings and goes into different things, but all in all, everything in the chapters that we read connect to a couple major points. I feel like top three of the major points to me that stuck out, especially dealing with chapter 7 and chapter 8, were control, race, gender, and class, of course, and just the idea of globalized garments and money and death, as well as like women. But yeah, I know that we all know, like, because it's talking about women the whole time, but not just as in being a woman is as a gender or a sex, but being a woman as just a commodity. Kind of like slavery, when like chattel slavery is a commodification of Africans. So I feel as though in this book, that's how women are viewed in their positions. And at the banana plantations where they're cleaning the bananas and stuff like that, they're not allowed to be on the plantation because of what? Because men are seen as more valuable. And yes, it's hard to cut the bananas, and all that stuff, and do it efficiently enough for you to have enough bananas to keep up your quota for the day. But women had to clean them. They had to make sure that the stem was off, and it was a very large stem. And they also had to make sure like it was clean of pesticides, because we can't eat that. And if people are starting to get sick from dole or any other kind of place, like people that sell bananas, we're not going to eat them anymore. So they're going to lose money, which means that the plantation itself is going to lose money. So the women had to make sure that they did their job efficiently and also to a T. Like they were experts at their job. And the most interesting thing to me is this book talks about something as a woman in America. It talks about something that we go through when we have jobs and when we, go being in college. We all end with the same degree. You know what I'm saying? If you're in this program, if you're international studies program with me, we're all in the same college. And if I go to get a job, me and somebody else, a male that graduated with an international studies degree at another school, go get apply for the same job, we technically have the same master's degree. He may have one bachelor's, whereas I have two, and they'll give him the job. And it's not necessarily based on the fact that he is more skilled than me, because I could be more skilled than him. But it's based off the fact that he's a man and I'm a woman. Or if I get the position, if they end up having two positions, and I get a position and then he gets a position, he's getting paid more than me when I get paid the same. And that's what this talks about. It's the idea of women's value in the workplace inherently being diminished. And in chapter 8, she talks about I think it was chapter 8, the beginning of chapter 8 or the end of chapter 7. She talks about the idea of the value of women's work being made instead of being natural. Whereas a lot of people in the industries, like especially the garment industry, have this view of the women's value of work, the reason why women get paid so little, like the women and the men in the garment district, but there's way, way more women than there are men. And it's historically been that way. And instead of the women and the men getting paid the same, they get paid less. So that's crazy to me, because the idea of women and men working the same job. Like, these are all third world countries. The reason why big names like Sears and H&M and Forever 21 and the list goes on, you name it, Walmart, they got it. Boom. From overseas, a lot of our stuff says made in China, made in Bangladesh, made in Indonesia. Mostly everything I've ever bought at a store is not made in America. I'm super surprised when I buy something and it says made in America, and I'm like, where? Because we don't make stuff, we just buy stuff. But the idea that a woman, our price value on our work was made for us because they could hire less women. It's better to hire a lot of women because you can pay them less. As well as, in addition to that, another reason as to why people let their daughters go away to the capitals of their country or places where there are garment factories is because the woman we're seen as nurturing. We're seen as always wanting to do for our family. Even if we don't have kids, if it's our mom, if it's our father, if it's our brothers and sisters, we're always seen as to do more for them. So it's more likely for your daughter to go away and go work at this garment district and get paid $27 a month, and for her to send a third of her money back to you. She may be 21, single, and at certain points they want the daughter to get married, but they say it's okay that we hold back your path to marriage, essentially, because you're more likely to help us out and we need to be helped out. Our son, that may be a year or two older than you, didn't when he went to work in the garment factories, he didn't send us 1/3 of his money. That's one of the reasons why in the book, why Dr. Enloe says that, it's better, I guess. That's why people see it as better. But in my opinion, I feel as though how much you get paid, especially in that situation, the men and the women are doing the exact same thing. However, in garment factories, there is there's very apparent gender roles in the workplace. The women work on the sewing machines. The men are usually the ones that are in power in the workplace, meaning like they're the supervisors, walk around the room saying, you need to do your work. Don't play with us. You won't get your check. Those are those people, or the people that are the security guards in the factory. Now, with that being said, these are factories that are male entrepreneurs own them. They're owned by male entrepreneurs. And they're like contracted from another contractor that contractor was contracted from Nike, H&M, Walmart, Sam's Club, whatever you like to do. They contracted someone to then go and contract somebody that has a factory in another country. So it's basically like, what? After you get so far in the mix, you're confused. You're like, okay, so who owns it? Like who's paying me? I don't know, as long as I get paid. And the people that got contracted out initially, the first contract out, their money is dependent upon the factory workers getting done what they need to get done and meeting their deadlines and stuff like that. And the factory workers' paycheck, even down to the people that don't do the sewing, the supervisors and stuff, their paycheck is contingent upon the people doing their work. So it's like, okay, if I had a lot of people that didn't want to do their work at my job, what am I going to do? If I'm working at Zoomies or someplace in the mall and people keep stealing, the people that I work with, we close up and they're taking like racks of clothes out the door. I'm like, maybe I should lock the doors. I'm going to lock the doors and I'm going to keep the key. Because they keep stealing and we need this for profit. Like, if I don't make the weekly sales that I'm supposed to make, guess what? My paycheck gets affected. So I need to make sure that I make the weekly sales that I need to make so that my paycheck is crystal clear because I got stuff to do with it. It's the same thing that happened with these garment factories, essentially, in Chapter 7. That's the majority of what Chapter 7 is about. And there have been, honestly, so many disasters, so many fires in these garment factories. I can't even begin. Like, I would literally have to go back to the book and read off each one. But it's one that I guess it's not more important than any other one. However, it is the most recent one that got a lot of attention because a lot of garment factory fires, they don't get a lot of attention because, quite frankly, Nike is saying, well, I get what you're saying. Bless everyone that passed away. We don't wish death on anybody. However, I contracted someone, and those people in that factory were contracted by whomever I contracted to. I wasn't connected with it, as well as, per my request, they're supposed to meet a safety inspection. They're supposed to get graded on it. Like, just like everybody else, when you walk in somewhere and it's like a B, or you walk in somewhere that's like a C-, and you're like, do I want anything from here? I don't know. But yeah, I told them they had to get a safety inspection. However, the people that I contracted out to work with whomever owns the factory, that factory got inspected by some local inspectors, some local monitors. They said it was okay, but they're working on just the minimum. They're like the actual step that we need to be on. The local monitors are saying, well, we're working on what we have in our country, which is acceptable, but as a factory that is, yes, it's in the country, but that factory probably needs to be a little bit more up to code because there's so much flammable things in it rather than just any old store, any old thing in the city. And so that has happened a lot. Like, it's happened as far back as in 1911, in March of 1911, in America. This is what shows you that how valued certain people's lives are. Because this happened, like, a really bad garment factory set fire in Lower Manhattan in 1911 in America, and it killed, like, I think 129 women and 17 men. Mainly were Jewish, Irish, or Italian young men and women, which at that time it tells you they were probably immigrants and they couldn't get work anywhere else. So they chose to get a job somewhere that didn't necessarily pay them the best, but it was a job. And they died. And it's the infamous Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. Shirtwaist. It's like, I didn't know about this because I'm not like, that's not my area of expertise, but this is something that is really ridiculous because fast forward to 2013. This is not even just a next one. It's been happening ever since, probably before 1911. But 1911 was just the worst one. And similar to the Tarzan fashion factory fire that happened in Bangladesh, where 1,129 people were killed, most of them women, in a factory fire, essentially because by their supervisors, their male supervisors, they were told, I understand that you smell smoke. It could be whatever happening. We don't know, but we got to get everything done that we need to get done. So you don't get up. And no, you can't leave because we've locked the doors because y'all, we feel like you guys are stealing. So that's it. We feel like you guys are stealing, so you can't leave. And this is a 9-floor building, 3 of the top floors of which are out of code. It's illegal because we just wanted to add more space so the people that own the building could get more money because there's five garment factories in here. It ended up actually being a fire. And a lot of people actually died just behind nothing. Just behind someone pushing them to maintain the money. So that to me is something that is very important. And certain questions that Enloe quoted from other people or asked within her text, I'm going to ask. And probably like after this video, you guys can discuss them a little more because I feel like this is very important, especially when we just come off of last week's like neoliberal queer politics. This is very important because I feel as though women's rights is something that ties into not only race, and it's not something that's just based off gender. It's something that's based off class. It's something that's contingent upon where you are in history, as well as what is going on in the government. Like, how does the government feel about women? It's very, in this book, especially chapters 7 and 8, spoke to the idea of, it's capitalism. Capitalism is the reason behind kind of the oppression of women in the workplace. The reason being is that we can pay these women less. When the sewing machine was marketed it, but either way, when the sewing machine was marketed and in the early 1900s, it was marketed towards women. Like, you know, if your kid plays outside too hard and they scuff their knee, we gotcha. Sew it together. Like, sew it up, girl. Sew it up, girl. That's exactly how they marketed to women. Don't quote me, though. I wasn't there. But while people that wanted to become factory owners were like, yeah, I get what y'all doing there, but I got a whole master plan in my mind. I'm about to buy mad sewing machines, and I'm going to employ women. So not only did the women not know, it was like, I like to sew, and I need a job. So, hey, Mr. Factory Man, you hiring? That type situation. And it was like, women were seen to, when they worked very efficiently. They're like the superwoman complex. That it's not, she doesn't call it a complex, but I call it a complex because, like, in reality, nobody can be Superman, Superwoman. It ain't gonna cut it. Like, people need sleep for their health and well-being and just stress. If you want to be Superman or Superwoman, you want to live a life full of stress, right? Because nobody can be Superwoman, Superman, Black Panther, Iron Man. That's not what we're put here to do. But the idea of a superwoman, a woman being able to go to work and work an 11-hour day and then go home, get the kids something to eat, like feed the kids, get them ready for school, help them with their homework, clean the house, tend to your husband, all of that. All of that. You're supposed to be able to do all of that, as well as working an 11-hour day, which essentially gives you 13 hours to sleep, to clean up, to tend to other people, to cook. I don't get it. But in all of this, it's the reason why women are seen as more. They could take advantage of us more. Not because of anything, but the fact of our strength, I guess. That's what a lot of what was speaking to me throughout these chapters were the fact of women are strong enough to endure it. So why not just give it to them? They're not going to say anything. No one's going to say anything. So why not? But the first question that I want to ask you guys, hold on, I'm finding it, is in pertaining to like we're going back to the banana workers. What image are you, like, in the book? What images, like, are pictured on the company's website as the farmers? And do as many women and men hold, like, why don't women hold as many titles to the land, like illegal titles to the land as men? Because during that chapter, they spoke about the fact of the men that work on the banana plantation, their people at home, their mothers, their daughters, their wives, are essentially holding the burden of them not being there. So yeah, they're away earning money, but everything that they do at home still has to be done. People still have to eat. People still have to work. People still have to, the farm, they have to farm. But most of these women, essentially, because all the men are in a banana plantation, most of these women are at home farming to land that's not even theirs. It's not even legally theirs. So if the government comes to take it, or anybody comes to take it or whatever, it's nothing they could do. So my question to you is, who are, like, pictured as the farmers on the company's website? Not even just that company, but you can have a wider view of it, like, in general. Who are seen as farmers? Whenever you, in the 21st century, see someone as a farmer on a website, who do you see? It's wild, though. I have an answer, but I'm not going to tell y'all. And as well as, what do you think the purpose is of women not being able to hold legal titles to their land? What does that make you think of? And what do you think could be changed if women cannot get the title to the land? What, do you think the women should still work on it? Or do you feel as though the women should have some claim to the land, even if they can't get a title? Maybe they can get a portion of it. Maybe they can something. What are your suggestions? And what do you feel about that whole topic? Because to me, I'm very American in that sense. Like, I don't want to work on this land if it's not even my land. Like, what? But it's just me. As well as another question is, when it comes to the garment factories, which I discussed earlier in the video, what do you think could be done to make bigger companies more responsible when it comes to the fires and the neglect that their workers, that the people that make their clothes are experiencing? Because at this point, so-and-so contracted out so-and-so to contract out so-and-so that is actually making the clothes. So the people that would essentially get in trouble, you have to first go through, I'm a worker, I'm sewing stuff, the fire breaks out, I'm dead. My people are going to go to the people that own the factory. The people that own the factory are completely at fault. But who is also at fault are the people that contracted out to the factory, because they should have known what was going on. Because although it is the person that owns the factory, or the people that own the factory's responsibility, it's also the one that contracts out. Like, it's just a really long, lengthy, like, chain of command, I guess. And what do you think could be done? Like, what are your suggestions as to how to fix that? Because almost 1,300 people died in a garment factory fire, of which some of those people could have been sending money back to their parents, to their family, and been the only one sending money back. So if you have to send a third of the money that you're earning back to your family, do you honestly believe that your family has enough money to bury you? I don't know. But what do you think could be done differently to make people to be held accountable? Because I feel as though something has to be done. That's the point of these movements and these progressions, is that something has to be done. We have to continuously move forward. And in doing that, we have to brainstorm. So you can take time to brainstorm. I mean, you could pause the video right now, or you could keep going. It's your call. But the last question that I wanted to ask is, how are you taught to view women? Because there's a whole section on domestic workers and how nowadays women are hiring women to do their work. So women hiring women to do a woman's work. And depending on the woman, depending on her status, what she got going on, her racial background, and the place you're in the way that society is going, it depends on how she treats her worker, her domestic worker. So for instance, there's a woman. We're sure there's a woman, and she's working as a domestic worker for a 47-year-old corporate America. She works for Wells Fargo corporate office. White woman. And she has one kid. He's like 7.5 years old, and his name is Cole. She looks after Cole, picks him up from school, takes him to school, feeds him breakfast, lunch when he gets home from school, and makes dinner for the whole house. And cleans the whole house and makes sure everything is everything inside the house. The woman who employed the worker, we're going to call the woman Susan. And we're going to call the worker Jill. Jill doesn't get treated well by Susan because she's Indonesian. And no one knows that everybody knows that Jill is Indonesian, but no one knows that Jill chose to work as a domestic worker, not because she couldn't get a job anywhere else, but because in her country, this is what she did, so she does it well. So she just chose to be a domestic worker. Susan and her family assume that the reason why Jill is a domestic worker is because she can't get paid over the table. She can't get paid, legally. They can't take taxes out her check because she's in the country illegally, as well as she doesn't speak real English, so she can't be doing anything real with her life. And, she's just a refugee or something, basically. So Susan treats Jill as such. She belittles her, not because she's a woman, but because of things that have to do with race and her history, her personal history in her country. So my question to you is, what do you think a woman's role actually is? What were you taught to believe a woman's role is? And could you contrast that between what society views a woman's role as? Whether it be as a domestic worker, we're talking about in that situation, or we're talking about in the garment factories, how women are viewed, or if we're talking about in the banana plantations, women's roles. What do you think a woman's role actually is? And do you believe that there is a way to change the narrative of a woman's role being specifically a garment worker, a banana cleaner, a domestic worker, a mother? Do you think the narrative of woman's work value could ever be changed? Or do you think there is a value to a woman's work? And if there is, can you tell me what it is? And can you tell me whether a man's work value is higher because he's a man? Or whether a woman's work value is lower because she's a woman? But thank you very much, for listening to this. I appreciate it. And I'm so sorry I couldn't be there with you guys because I really want to be involved in a discussion because I got a lot to say about this book. But, yeah. Thank you.